Walk into a hospital, I get this little chill thinking about all the invisible threats like healthcare-associated infections, or HAIs. The stats are honestly staggering, millions of cases every year across Europe alone, and so much of it is preventable.
It's wild, isn't it? I remember seeing a figure that out of every 100 hospitalized patients, up to 10 in emerging countries will pick up an HAI. That's not just a number, those are real people facing complications that drag out their recovery and even put their lives at risk.
Exactly. And it's not just about patient health. HAIs drive up costs for the entire health system. Plus, with antimicrobial resistance growing, it's turning into a global headache no hospital can afford to ignore.
What gets me is that at least 20% of these infections are preventable, and if we really nail the right measures, that number could maybe hit 50%. That's a huge opportunity. It almost seems criminal not to take it seriously.
That actually reminds me, when we talk about prevention, it's not always high-tech gear or fancy protocols. The basics, like hand hygiene, proper use of gloves, cleaning equipment, are where most of the magic happens.
Oh, hand hygiene. It sounds so simple, but compliance rates are shockingly low in a lot of places. I read that even in intensive care units, only about 60% of staff follow the guidelines. And in some low-income countries, it drops below 10%.
I know, and it's not just about rubbing some sanitizer. There are all these little details. Short nails, no jewelry, covering cuts with waterproof plasters. It's the kind of stuff that's easy to skip when you're busy, but skipping it can have major consequences.
And it's not just hands. Think about things like respiratory etiquette or cleaning the environment. One overlooked dirty surface or a single careless cough can trigger a whole chain reaction. Sometimes it feels like infection control is all about noticing what everyone else misses.
Funny you mention tiny details. Choosing and using personal protective equipment, or PPE, is another area where those small decisions matter. Whether it's gloves, masks, or gowns, just grabbing whatever's closest isn't enough.
For sure, the right PPE depends so much on what you're actually doing, the risk of contact, body fluids, even things like if the patient is coughing or if you're doing something messier. I once watched someone skip eye protection during a splash-prone procedure, and it was nerve-wracking.
And then there's the sequence, how you put it all on and take it off. Forgetting the right order can mean you contaminate yourself at the very last step. It feels like choreography sometimes, with a lot riding on getting each step just right.
It's almost like a dance, but the stakes are way higher. I always remind trainees, you're not just protecting yourself, but everyone else in the ward. And you're also protecting the next patient who comes in contact with that space or equipment.
After all that, there's still the challenge of recognizing when basic precautions aren't enough. Some infections, like those spread by airborne particles or droplets, need extra steps, like special rooms or specific masks.
Absolutely, and it's not one size fits all. For airborne risks, you might need a negative pressure room and a high-grade respirator, while droplet transmission calls for different setups like masks and maybe a face shield if there's a risk of splashing.
Even contact transmission has its quirks, gloves, and gowns, but also making sure nothing from the patient's space gets carried out on your clothes or hands. I've seen whole teams drill these scenarios, just to make sure everyone reacts automatically.
And that's where training really pays off. Simulation exercises can make these responses second nature. It's not just about memorizing protocols, but learning to spot risks and act fast. The best teams I've seen treat infection control as a constant mindset, not just a checklist.
Last week, we got stuck on a simulation where a patient needed an urgent procedure, and honestly, it was a scramble to remember all the steps, from PPE to waste disposal. It made me realize how quickly details can slip when you're stressed.
That's such a great point. Real-life situations are rarely textbook perfect. You've got alarms going off, patients anxious or confused, and you have to balance infection control with everything else happening. Sometimes it really comes down to good teamwork and having each other's backs.
Exactly. And when everyone's on the same page, communicating, checking each other, reminding each other, it not only keeps patients safer, but makes the whole workplace feel more secure and supportive.
And I love seeing how even a simple reminder like don't forget your eye protection can make a difference. At the end of the day, infection control is about people looking out for people. That's what changes outcomes.